I promise you, every single week we do this and the little red live button comes on, I want to turn to Rufus and say, "Are we live?" As if the little indicator isn't over there in the corner.
The
like
indicator is doing its job.
The indicator is indicating like I need some other sort of verification. But welcome, virtual family. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome to the Monday evening pop-up. This is Us Discussion.
This is us.
I am Jamila Chambers, along with my husband, Pastor Rufus Chambers III, coming in live on Monday.
We official. We got the third on
it. Baby, don't get it confused.
We got the full name, so this must be a serious conversation
tonight. Listen, as y'all know, when we get on social media platforms, it takes a cute couple of moments to build an audience. So it will start to ping, it will start to send notifications.
That's right.
So as it is doing that, we are going to take just a couple of moments to ask you to drop your name, drop your city and state in the chat. We love to see who's on the line with us tonight. This is the second in the series of conversations we've been having all month. It is Valentine's Day coming up pretty soon. It is Black History Month. It is.
We got a lot going on.
Yes, it is a very strategic time that conversations around relationships happen, and we want to just invite y'all in just a little bit so we can learn from one another.
Come in the room.
And tonight's topic will be on agreement.
What did we talk about last week? Help the people understand what we talked about last week.
All I know is last week I had some explaining to do. Tell me what we talked about last week.
We talked about behind the scenes. We talked about image versus reality.
That's right.
So
And last week, and one of the things that I would
say, South Richmond's in the building. What's going on, Aaron?
South Richmond, stand up. That's our brother for real.
Yeah, what's going on, sir? Good to see you, man.
One thing I will say about all the content, whether it was last week's pop-up or our Sunday virtual gatherings, any of our discussions that we've had, there have been a wonderful series of interviews. There have been wonderful series of connecting conversations, a wonderful series of bridge university courses, workshops that we've hosted on the weekend. All of that content is available to you on whatever streaming platform you're viewing us on now. So whether you're watching this on Facebook or you're watching us on YouTube, all of that content is there. And so we want to make sure that whether you're joining us live for this part of the conversation or you're catching out any other content on the replay, we want to make sure you get that.
That's another,
the whole family.
That's another South Richmond.
You know what?
Well, she's not in South Richmond anymore.
But y'all never leave South Richmond. Y'all can go.
You got to bring South Richmond with you to New York. What's going on?
You can go from the east.
That's right.
That's right. To the north,
some
to
folks
the south.
don't even know. That'll be another conversation.
That'll be a whole other conversation.
We got to do a pop up on Richmond.
Listen, I'm gonna be in the chat because I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
That's true.
I just
all day, every day. That's right.
Richmond for
that's
sure.
Right. That's right.
And so that's one thing about Richmond. It never leaves you. A quick funny story about Richmond. That was the first place that I lived in the Bay Area when I moved from Southern California to Northern California. Right. That was the first place we bought our home.
That's right.
In Richmond, California, on Carlson, 1439 Carlson, about four doors down from the 40 Flags Motel.
That's
Somebody
right.
holler if you hear me.
That's right. That's right.
So one of the things that I would always say about folks from Richmond is I didn't understand why y'all knew one another. Y'all would say things like, "Oh, I went to school with so-and-so and their family." Or I went to school with such and such's older brother, younger brother, neighbor, that sort of thing.
To locate it.
Listen,
y'all stay near here, or y'all stay near there,
next to this person,
and then we were connected.
So growing up in Los Angeles, we just aren't that connected.
Y'all built different.
We just kind of built a little different.
Y'all built different.
So we didn't have that sense of connectivity, that sense of multi-generational connectivity that felt to me on the outside very Southern even, right? It felt like these very extended senses of community, very interconnected families. all that good stuff. And so that's one thing that always stands out to me about Richmond is y'all a family for real. And most of y'all are in the chat and can drop in the chat. I'm gonna need South LA to show up. Since we got Richmond showing up, we'll see who's here from LA. But I tell you what about Richmond. So Facebook's already done what it's gonna do. Let's go ahead and get into the content for tonight, which is agreement.
Agreement in marriage. This is us. What does agreement look like? I want you to answer. What does agreement in marriage look like, and what does it not look like? What's up, Felicia? Good to see you.
Listen, Felicia said that's how it is in SAC too. Good to see y'all. I'm glad to see those boys growing up. That's
crazy,
man.
That's crazy.
I should say young men.
That's
them what they are. They're some young men now. But what does agreement in marriage look like?
Yeah, what does it look like?
What does agreement in marriage not look like?
I want to know.
So let me just start and do what I always do, which is speak from our experience. Because for those of you that don't know this part of our story, Rufus and I started dating when we were 19 and 21. And so we were college undergrads, transitioned from being college students to first time being employed, first time kind of just trying to get our feet wet as young adults, trying to figure life out while maintaining this relationship. And we started off our relationship again, really young, more like roommates, right? Like more like we're seeing one another, we're in a relationship, but you know what? You do your thing and I'm gonna do mine, right? So we are on this same path together, but the commitment to the togetherness wasn't always as strong as it had become later in time. And one of the cracks in the foundation, so to speak, in that disagreement or in that not having as strong a foundation from the very beginning was us transitioning from being boyfriend and girlfriend for 5 years to being husband and wife and what that meant. Because I had a very different definition about what that meant than Rufus did. I thought, hey, we just had a great party. This was fantastic. We just gonna keep doing what we've been doing.
That's right.
And Rufus thought, now you my wife. And I'm like, well, what? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And so those first couple of years were hard because we had kind of flipped the script a little bit in terms of expectations, in terms of a shared vision, in terms of aligning our finances. Again, we were roommates in every way. Decisions about our career. Well, you decide what you're going to do. We don't really have to talk it over or figure it out together. We're just going to keep, kind of doing our own thing. Now, describe those early days. And baby, you got to stop. I'm too distracted for how you.
No, go for it. You good.
As y'all know, Rufus forever got 100
production.
things.
We got to do production.
Rufus forever got 100 things working. And he over here scrolling, trying to click folk in. And I'm like,
production.
I'm like, I can't.
We got to do production.
I'm trying to walk you, girl.
Okay.
And
okay,
it's just too much going on.
Okay.
It's just too much going on. So what my question to you was, looking back on those early days when there wasn't so much agreement, because you asked me what does agreement look like and what does disagreement look like. So I was just taking a personal example from our marriage when there was that the largest season, and there's been others. Like don't let me act like disagreement is some distant, like we agree on everything, or that the times where we don't agree is some distant thing in the past. But when we had the most significant season of disagreement and not knowing how to, we weren't equipped to bring ourselves back together, were those early days when we had kind of set a pattern of doing something else, and we had tried to change that pattern. So what were those days like for you? Like if you had to think back on that season of disagreement, what did that look like from your perspective, or what was kind of your takeaway in the moment?
And I guess one of the takeaways, for me was it wasn't even necessarily about disagreement, but it was more so honoring you or me agreeing with myself. It was almost like, I'm holding.
Unpack what you mean by that.
Yeah. So meaning that the priority was to honor what I thought or what I said. And at times in marriage, it may just by happenstance agree with your spouse, and sometimes it wouldn't agree, but that allegiance, was, hey, this is what I think, this is what I thought, versus, so, I mean, it could, I'm trying to think of a good, easy example of where, we could just see a thing differently. But before we were seeking agreement, it wasn't even a desire to try and find a place where we could meet in the middle or compromise. It's just like, hey, she thinks this, I think this, and that's just too bad.
I think that worked for us until the stakes got higher.
Yeah.
Until we became parents and, started to grow and amass, quite frankly, just more financial responsibilities and things of that nature. So when the stakes weren't as high, meaning when we can kind of make more individual choices about ourselves.
Exactly.
Whether or not we came into agreement wasn't as big of a concern, or wasn't something that was so amplified or magnified.
Because it was like coming into the marriage, and the truth of the matter is, part of it is trying to really divorce yourself, or we had to divorce ourselves from a single person's mentality. You know what I mean? And whereas, again, you come in with a single person's mentality, it's my way, it's my stuff, it's my career, it's my this, that, and the other. And, over time, we found that, really for God to get in the midst of our marriage, we were going to have to find a way to agree on the vision of our marriage, the path of our marriage, the do's and don'ts of our marriage. You know what I mean? And as we begin to kind of find that common place, I feel like that's when God really stepped in and unlocked this concept of agreement in marriage to us. You know what I mean? But it was multiple years to get there, and, I just think about, even when we were, think about the first church, that we were a part of, and, you took it more seriously than I did. You know what I mean? And I'll go and I'll sit in the back. I didn't meet, we used to have nicknames for people because we didn't know people's names. We would be told, oh, that's Deacon Super Clean. We didn't know Deacon Super Clean, but we just knew that the brother was clean.
I don't know Deacon Super Clean's name. I
don't know the
to this day.
To this day.
It's some folks I need to ask.
Yeah.
So if I describe him, they would know who he is.
But again, I was there, but I wasn't wholeheartedly there. And you were really trying to be committed. You know what I mean? You were, let's go to Bible study, and, you writing notes, and I'm sitting there like, okay, I'm just here. You know what? But again, as we came in agreement in the future about, our spiritual well-being and our walk with Christ, again, things started to shift. You know what I mean? So, whenever we talk about marriage, we always talk about agreement because we feel like it's a principle that just releases a favor and a power to work in a marriage, that you just won't see if you don't come into an agreement. We got all kind of testimonies we could share, but maybe before we get to the testimonies, why don't you, I'm trying to think of a really good time when we were out of agreement on an issue, and then we came in agreement on an issue or a way to do something, and then God just opened up doors for us.
Yeah, like Rufus mentioned, there were several series of decisions. And that's one thing I will say about agreement, about the status of any relationship, about anything that's kind of going on in any of our lives. Like everything about our lives is just a manifestation of a series of decisions we've made,
true.
right?
That's
so every relationship we have, whether we lost the 10 pounds, whether we gained the 10 pounds, all of those things.
Wow. Yeah, we can get real practical
are
with
just
that.
right, because all of those things are just based on a series of decisions.
That's right.
Did you eat the cookie or did you eat the apple?
That's right.
Decisions, right?
That's right.
And so as Rufus was sharing very early on, there were minor decisions that we had to make when the stakes weren't as high. When our family started to expand, and one of the greatest decisions we had to come into agreement on was concerning whether or not we would short sale our property in the Bay Area. Middle of the housing crisis, so many things going on with the housing market. We had to make, we made a huge financial decision and investment to acquire the home. It was, are we going to make another huge financial investment to leave the home? And most importantly, that particular home was in the neighborhood, in the community that had the great public schools. And now we've got these two toddler girls at the time that we needed to consider that were maybe 2 years out from being school age. And so we really had to, for the first time, consider not only what was good for the two of us, but what was also best for these two people that we brought into the world.
That's true.
And how the thing that I struggled with was making sober decisions and not making emotional decisions and not making decisions based on solely based on how I felt in the moment, my ego about things or my emotions about things. And so I remember that time being one of those moments. Another one of those moments that we came into agreement was, you kind of transitioning into ministry full time from a corporate standpoint.
That was heavy.
Yes. And so we talked about us kind of growing up together and having this kind of one track mindset about
and that's a good example. I'm glad you brought that up because there were times in our marriage where if we wouldn't come in agreement because we were unwilling to compromise. But then the example that she just brought up, that was a tough decision to come in agreement with. That wasn't easy. But, in that case, Jamila really, she sacrificed to come in agreement. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's what marriage will look like, is sometimes you got to lay down a sacrifice for the sake of agreement, and sometimes, when we talk to husbands and wives, sometimes wives will be very skeptical. Well, my husband, he's making bad decisions, or he doesn't know how to do this. He doesn't know how to do that. And sometimes my point will be is sometimes you're going to have to allow your husband to lead, even if he makes a decision that doesn't pass the sniff test, or that in hindsight, it may be a mistake. We've had some of those situations in our marriages as well. But if you never trust one another in this thing about agreement, you won't grow, you won't develop. You know what I mean? So that example of going into ministry full time for that 2 to 3 years or whatever, that was some sacrifice there. I mean, just again, because by that time in our marriage, I think we had been married. Wow, we had been married over 10 years, I think. Yeah, we had been married about 10 years or so. And the way it would have worked is, I believe I had heard from God.
Come on now.
But if Jamila would not have came in agreement, I wouldn't have done the decision. You know what I'm saying? So I wasn't willing to make the decision without her coming in agreement with it, because by that time we knew the power of agreement. It was just, and another example, y'all, is what's up, Shonda, is when I wanted to move to Texas. You know, I mean, I was ready to move to Dallas, Texas, and I was turned up. And what year was that? That was
09, 08, 09-ish, around there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I thought I had heard from God. I had heard from God, y'all. I had wrote my pastor a letter. I had put my Genesis 12, 1-3 about getting out of your father's house and going and da-da-da. But Jamila just didn't have that peace about it. And we have friends down there. We got family down there. You know, job opportunities were down there, but Jamila just didn't have that peace. And we couldn't find that place of agreement. So we didn't move, you know. But those are like two real examples of honoring this principle of agreement. I think that's what we really want y'all to get a hold of is, you know, you have to honor that agreement. And sometimes, you know how we'll counsel a couple and they'll come in, well, I'm mad at this and I'm mad at that. And, you know, but everybody got their laundry list. And then we'll be like, well, what are y'all in agreement about? You know, and then sometimes when they start thinking about it from that lens, they're like, well, wow, we got 10 things we're in agreement about. It's really 2 things that we need to work through and find a place of agreement. You know what I mean? And, you know, y'all, that's what we've seen when you're working through life and working through challenges and tests from a place of agreement, you will experience victory. You know what I mean? And again, sometimes, you know, that victory may not feel good, but, you know, just believe God that all things are working together for your good.
And it's just something I want to share here as well. One of the things, and I think I will probably echo this every week that we come together, is it's so important that you have mentors, that you have folks to kind of coach you through a situation. Because Rufus and I, you know, may have one story, right? And we have one way that we've had to, that we've approached marriage and relationship, and this is our story. But you know what? There are so many different compositions of families, so many different compositions of marriages. There are so many ways things blended and converse. And sometimes you need to talk to some folks about, well, what is this like? When let me just keep it 100. What is this like when it's some child support money coming out my check, right? And I've got to come into agreement about children, about grandchildren, even because we got folks getting married later in life. I got to come into agreement about children or grandchildren. Or I have someone that's lived a whole life, you know, before me, and have to come into agreement about how to blend and merge those lives.
Yeah.
So however you find folks, and here's a litmus test: take advice from some folks that's been in it and have successfully come out on the other side of it.
That's true.
Like scout their life out, and find some folks that have a very similar testimony or have overcome in a very similar way. And ask some of those folks about those decisions that had to be made little by little and along the way to kind of come into agreement. Because again, all those stories and all those ways that we all have to converge and talk through relationship challenges are going to be different couple to couple, right? And so for those that might not, you know, directly identify with this story, find someone whose story you directly identify with that was able to come out on the other side of it.
And that's the thing, y'all. You know, I think about some of our strongest marriage mentors. I'm thinking about 3 couples. From the outside looking in, everything looks flawless and spotless, but those couples have invited us in to transparent places, and they expose their wounds. They expose their battle scars. You know what I mean? So, and how much that always blesses me, because when they expose their wounds and expose their scars, it's encouraging to know that, wow, they've been through that. And so that means we can get through whatever we're dealing with, and it's really a testimony about the power of God, that God will keep us when we want to be kept. You know what I mean? And, so that's always encouraging. So again, and we talked about this last time about, everybody will, stay out of my business, but don't have people stay out of your business to the point of the divorce court, or to the point of the bankruptcy court. You know what I'm saying? Let's invite some trusted advisors into your life. Can we pause and say that one more
time? Because again, everybody wants somebody out your business.
Yeah.
Until it get real. Yeah. They be like, well, why you didn't call
me? Exactly.
Right.
Or somebody with some lumps all in their head up in the hospital talk about, I was privately abused. Well, hold up now. You know what I'm saying? So y'all, there's times when you got to raise your hand.
Right.
And invite some trusted people in to render aid and assistance.
And that's the other part about this agreement conversation too. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've kind of been thinking on last week, between last week's discussion and tonight's discussion, was what really had us in this thing. Like, we talk about our mentors, we talk about letting people in, like we talk about trying to hold on to this thing and build on this thing, and I have what we call a branded relationship, right? So we got a brand that we got out in the street, and right, because we were talking about image. Stop somebody. He don't want to tell it. I'm telling it.
What you talking about?
Man, listen. Scroll through these timelines. You gonna see
when they used to call us the Huxtables back in the day.
Come on.
They used to be trying
to
clown.
What you did back in the day last week? Mr. Wayne texted me last week.
Okay.
So anyway, we used to be privately called the Huxtables behind our back. Not quite behind our back. And
but everybody had an eyebrow of wait. They was waiting for that shoe to fall. For that Bill Cosby to pop out.
And I literally even said the Huxtables ain't even the Huxtables. Might as well be yourself. Might as well be yourself. But what I'm saying is that there's this image, right? There's this outward facing. Mm-hmm. There's this presentation that's external. And that's what we were talking about last week. But I was trying to really ask myself, like, well, what caused us to invest on the internal? And I think it was always, and I kind of shared this with you, like, our oldest daughter right now is learning how to drive. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we tell Winter is that when you choose to get behind the wheel of a vehicle, you have to operate that vehicle knowing that you are operating a lethal weapon. You have to think for you. You have to think for yourself. You have to think for pedestrians. You have to, every time you get behind the wheel, and that doesn't matter if you've been driving 6 months like she has or 60 years like someone else. Every time you get behind the wheel of a car, you have to be a present of mind to understand that you are responsible.
That's right.
And I think if I had to make that analogy, that's the way we have approached our marriage, with the understanding that we are responsible. Like, this union is not just for us, it's for our kids, it's for the legacy of the Chambers family. It is for our community, and it's not to put any added pressure. It doesn't feel like pressure. It does feel like responsibility. Yeah. It doesn't feel like pressure, but for the privilege of being able to be in this vehicle and to move, through life in this vehicle that we move in, there is a responsibility and an external responsibility, and we are always reverent of that, and aware of that. And I think that's what when we talk about mentors and people and paying attention and coming into agreement and like doing the work, to get there, I think that's the one thing that if I had to share like a secret sauce, because I was trying to figure it out, that's the one thing that I think is really top of mind for me, that we just always understand that this was serious. Like,
no, that's true.
This
that's
was
true. That is
this
true.
is like Winter getting behind the wheel. I'm gonna need you to turn the radio off. I'm gonna need you to
that's true.
No distractions, everything. That this was serious. Erin, she on the road. Erin,
praise the Lord.
She on the road.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember Deja was just her age.
That's true.
That part. But yeah. So that's it. So good to see y'all. Good. Hey, Danny. So good to see you. You don't know my good friend Carrie. Carrie we went to Revere and Pally together.
Wow.
I'm not even good. We got more years than fingers and toes.
Y'all go way back.
We go way back.
Way
back. And in fact, Carrie, I think we took just about every class together too. In both, we were at, it was junior high back then, no middle school, don't play us. So back junior high and high school, her name was Carrie Kandasamy when we were kids, and my name was Jamila Wyndham, and now things have changed. So good to see you, Carrie. I'm so glad you dropped in the live tonight.
That's right.
When Danielle dropped in the live. So landing the plane about agreement. And then we got to make sure we tell them who's coming at the end of the month.
That's right.
We got special guests coming at the end of the month.
That's right.
If we had to kind of give one nugget or a takeaway or something that you want to make sure that we all know, I used to say Carrie's name, Caroline. We used to sing her.
we had a jingle.
Yeah, we had a jingle for it.
We had a jingle. Yeah. We see Elder Paul in there.
We had a jingle
in there.
I know. Oh my gosh. So Sora Andrea dropped off her baby boy at school.
What? When? In the fall?
No, like a couple weeks ago. And he had Morehouse. I want to say he had more. Like he grown up on us from camping. These kids don't play. Her big girl bought a house. I mean, these kids don't play. So
on the move.
Listen, she 2 for 2 at her house. I'm trying to have that same 2 for 2 over here. So please send us your prayers. And you talk about people that's dropping breadcrumbs. I see your work.
That's right.
I see what you are doing with your 2. And when I need to put a call through, I know how to find you. So thanks for dropping on the line for sure. Miss y'all. I haven't seen her in a long time. I think well before we moved. So good to see you. So what's our last nugget? Where we're going to close tonight about agreement?
Yeah,
we're going to let everybody know how to connect with us at the end of the month.
I think agreement is just, I would seek it out actively, in your marriage. Look for places where you're not in agreement, and then invest the time to communicate so that you could find a place of agreement. It may be about health. It could be about finance. It could be about careers. It could be about child rearing. It could be about, finding a local church. It could be about retirement. I mean, come on now, as we go down the list of stuff in marriage, there are plenty of opportunities to tighten up your agreement, because again, and that's something that we didn't really get a chance to talk about. But, then as you take that agreement from a conversation and then you put it into prayer, I mean, that's a whole nother thing, a whole nother conversation to talk about the power of God being released through the power of agreement, through prayer. We got a book back there on the petitions. You remember we used to write them petition prayers out, and we would sign them, as husband and wife. And we got to LA by way of agreement. You know what I mean? Because again, that was a pivotal decision, but we came in agreement. And after we came in agreement, God began to unlock doors. When we came off the cruise with the One Reflection Marriage Ministry, we came in agreement. God began to unlock doors. So, y'all, we're having a casual conversation, but there's definitely a deeper spiritual reservoir that y'all need to tap into as well regarding the power of agreement. So with that, we also want to invite you to join us for a very special class called This Is Us, brought to you by the Bridge University. And that is going to be on Saturday, February 27th. Our good friend and brother David Burris is going to be holding a session. We're going to have him for a little over an hour for a transparent conversation. He's going to bring, his bag of tricks to the conversation. And it's really going to just build upon everything that we've been talking about. Registration is free, but we do ask that you register. So I'm going to put where you register up on the screen, bit.ly/ThisIsUs21. We want to see you registered, and we look forward to that session. We're going to try and make it as fun as possible and as interactive as possible. And we'll be back next Monday.
We'll be back next Monday.
Is that? That's the 15th. Look. Yeah, that's the 15th. Yeah.
Whatever the date is, just count 7 days from right now. We'll be back next Monday.
Hit the share button, y'all. Hit the share button.
Hit the share button. Oh, Sorgeretta's on. Listen. When I tell you the sorors have come out They have come out this evening in the chat. You know this would happen.
You need to have your pearls on. This would happen. You got some green. She got the wrong shade of green on. But she got some. Yeah. She's
but that's all right. We in the house, so it's so good to see everybody, and I really appreciate it. All jokes aside,
absolutely,
the wonderful thing about Facebook, especially at this time when many of us have still been shelter in place and have not been interacting and getting out as much as we should, to be able to interact in any forum with old friends, old classmates.
It's a blessing.
Of folks near and far. As you see, we don't break up with nobody. I don't care if we go back to 86 or if I just met you most recently. Either way, we just are so honored that you joined us. So happy to just feel your love and your presence, even through these virtual airwaves. So thank you so very much, Felicia. Absolutely. Give our love to all the Williamses, all of them. So we love y'all so much. We're going to go ahead and sign off.
All right, signing off, y'all. Salute. Have a wonderful Monday night. And we will see you soon later this week. God bless.